Record. All right, let's hit up another one.
Hit up another
Start the
one.
timer. Oh, I need to use the French accent because I will be in Paris.
Oh, yes. I love the French. You can even use naughty language and it just still sounds like silk coming out of your mouth. It's so the language of love.
Well, I don't know what kind of accent that was. That was like a cross between
Inside all kinds of things for you, huh? Yeah.
It's like Gru. Like, who is that?
It's kind of Gruish, kind of...
Girls!
kind of Frenchish, though, huh? Little bit of Italian? European?
A little bit of all of them and
Time to keep it all
a lot
together.
of nothing.
Slowly moving into something totally different.
Oh man. Okay, ready?
Oh yeah, I was
Summer.
born ready, baby.
And here we go.
Swagalicious.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Shrink Think podcast. In our last episode, we talked about accepting yourself, accepting the reality of the situation, and like tolerating the distress of that. And there's a little bit of grief work that goes into that. And today it's going to be kind of similar, but it's more on a personal level. It's similar in the sense that it's like accepting reality, accepting what's really true, but it's really all about you. Because as we like to say here on the Shrink Think podcast, you are your biggest problem. That's true. I know you don't like hearing that. And you're probably like kicking something or like cursing in your car if you're listening, like, stop reminding me. But it's true. You are the biggest problem in your own life. You get in your own way. And I am my biggest problem, right? We are our own worst problem in our own life that we have to face and deal with every single day. And one of the problems that we struggle with, that a lot of us have difficulty with on some level or another, is being honest with ourselves. And we see this all the time as therapists. People will come in and they'll say, this is happening and I'm thinking this and I'm feeling that and it doesn't seem right to me. I'm a pretty good intuitor and I'm picking up like, no, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, well, why do you feel that way? Where is that coming from? Is there anything else that you're feeling or whatever? And some of that might just be like, repressed or subconscious sort of thoughts and feelings about something. And in some ways, that's not really what I mean. Like, because we can have like this self-exploration and realize, oh, I didn't realize it was connected to this and I feel this way about it, whatever. Okay. What we're getting at is not that. It's more like, I don't want to admit that I'm feeling this way or that I think this way or that I even have these kinds of thoughts and ideas. So it's really more about me. And if I were to paint this picture of myself, this is not painting, this is drawing actually. If you're watching us on YouTube,
be more like
it's like, the painting is a picture. It's a French accent. It's an impressionist photo. The picture that I'm painting of myself is not a pretty one. I think a lot of us want to paint a better picture of ourselves, or we don't want other people to see the ugly picture of ourselves that really is there. But the reality is we all are ugly. We all, have beautiful sides of us, and we really all have kind of ugly sides of us where we're like, oh man, I can't believe I thought that. Can't believe I said that. Can't believe I did that. But that's the reality. So we're going to be talking about how can I be honest with myself and what are some of the consequences, the problems that develop if I'm not honest with myself.
Yes, if I'm understanding this correctly, and I think I am, you are ugly and my problem.
He's looking in the mirror. He doesn't realize.
If you're on YouTube, you see I'm not looking in the mirror.
Oh, yeah. It's a mirror, buddy.
The camera's not on you right now, dude. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, so buckle up, little campers. I know you're sitting there beside the fire in your little podcast follower shirt that you got from Swagalicious. No, just kidding. Anyway, yeah, enjoy that. By the way, we just thank you for listening all the time to the show and that kind of thing. It's really kind of fun to be able to do this and just, I feel really honored for being able to, sit behind us and people are actually listening, and that's weird.
But they're not watching, they're actually listening.
And also, they could be watching.
Oh, now they can be, because we have a YouTube channel.
Yes.
Before it was just a podcast, and you were always encouraging people to watch our podcast. Now they can. That was future Nathan going back in time, telling present people, hey, watch our... Oh, it hasn't happened yet.
Yep, see, now I was always being honest with myself.
That's right. Eventually, you can watch this podcast.
Yeah. So, being honest with yourself usually, like when you were mentioning in the open there, I was thinking, when I do this to myself, I kind of have this weird wall in my mind that's like, nope,
Yep.
not gonna, no. How about no? And I kind of know I'm doing it. And
Wow, as you say that, I get like the heebie-jeebies, like this chill across my body. It's like, oh, I hate that feeling. It's like you instantly know what you're saying or thinking. You're like, whoa,
Right.
no, don't want that.
No. Roll myself by the fire.
Back
Yeah.
that thing up.
Yeah, so it is hard because it's like, man, I don't want to scratch the wall. Like, I just don't want to scratch it. I don't know how thick it is. We'll talk about this later. Let's move on. And that'll happen sometimes for me in a session with somebody, and they'll come to a conclusion, and I'll be like, crap. Like, this same thing is what I'm doing. Like, whatever it is. That is half the reason why probably I grow is because of therapy going the other way, where I start realizing how much crap applies to me.
Like as a therapist, like we're sitting in session and we're definitely making space for the other person,
Right.
and then it's like, oh, I see myself there. Note to self for later. Like, that's me. Oh, that's what I look like. Okay, great.
That's why my wall is so good.
Right.
Because I'm so good
exactly.
at going like, oh, I built a wall there. Let's just stay with this person.
Mhm.
I walk out of the session, like going in the in-betweens out of the next one. The wall goes, hello. And then I say, goodbye.
Close that door.
Let's talk later. I don't have time to talk with you right now.
Mhm.
So trying to describe it, it's like people usually give you feedback on some of this stuff. They'll say something that and you won't hear it because they'll be like, you always or you never, and you'll be like, nope, I do not always or never anything. And you're right, you don't. But they are probably noticing something, and trying to hold that truth and look at it is very difficult to do, because ultimately it's like you're agreeing that you're somebody you're not. It's kind of what it feels like, well, that can't be true because that's not me.
And that's ultimately, I think, a great description of that painting thing that I was saying. When you're painting a false picture of yourself, it's because you don't necessarily want that version of you to be true.
Yeah, yeah, you don't know what's on the other side of the wall. I mean, really.
I think there's an aspect of this, I think, too, that when we're doing that, when we're saying, this is the reality of what I think, feel, believe, whatever, what I'm doing, when that's happening, I think oftentimes we're attaching a meaning or assigning a meaning to that thing, and we're saying, oh, I think that. Like if you slow it down, rewind the tape and you slow it down in slow-mo, frame by frame, what you would see is, and this happens very quickly, which is why you got to slow it way down, which is what we do in therapy, right? Try to break things down into smaller pieces. Mm-hmm. Is that, okay, I had this thought, and I said to myself, oh no. Okay, sorry, I won't. For those of you who are listening at 2x speed, you're like, oh, that's more comfortable. Thank you. Oh no, if I think this thought, or if I admit that I did this for this reason, that means blank about me. And that thing is terrible, awful, it's shameful, it's whatever, it's something we don't like and we don't want to believe about ourselves. And maybe it does mean that thing, but it also doesn't have to mean it. The point is, we will stop being honest with ourselves and admitting what really happened or what we're really thinking and feeling. We'll stop seeing ourselves as we really truly are in that moment, because we don't want to face that reality about ourselves and feel the discomfort of it.
Yeah, and a lot of these things have major consequence. Work with people who are living in a relationship. One of the things that happens, by the way, now I'm just realizing there's some stuff that correlates big picture. It's with divorce these days, people are more likely to basically stay together if they don't. From a financial standpoint, it's like, well, I can't afford this.
I don't want to have to start over at 55 or something.
Right, and so it's like, but getting there's an element of not being honest with where the relationship is at, right? So one person doesn't want to admit what's actually happening, and they can hold on to that in a delusional way for, indefinitely, I guess. And because then, well, if you go there and if you admit it to yourself. Yes, it's probably true. That means all these things. That means you'll lose your house. That means you'll lose your blah, 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 or whatever is going on. Well, I don't know if that's true. I mean, you're already in this weird relationship, you know, if that's you in my weird example, it's like you kind of already have, when there's another relationship involved, they don't even have the same perspective as you. Like, so whatever your wall is not their wall. So being honest with yourself and looking over the wall and you're like, is this happening over here? And they'll be like, what are you talking about? I'm already done. I've already whatever. I'm not doing that. And it kind of can give you like permission to kind of go all the way over on the other side. So it's like, wait a minute. It kind of, in the last episode we talked about, I mentioned this kind of anticlimactic thing, like where you kind of like run into this toleration of what's going on. And then you're like, oh, I had all these fears. I guess those aren't all true. Now, don't get me wrong, but you have a reason for why it is that you don't want to look, as I'm calling it, on the other side of the wall. But dollars to donuts, it's not going to be as nasty as you think. It will be a different kind of nasty, likely, because you don't know. Part of what you're worried about when you're not being honest with yourself is what you don't know. It's the unknown. It's oh no, I don't know what that means. I think it means this. What if I find that out? Well, okay, what if you do find that out?
So ultimately, when you are looking at yourself and you're saying, okay, I need to admit to myself, this is what I really think about this thing, this situation, my life, myself, my relationship, whatever. This is what I really think. This is how I feel. This is what I really did, or my real motivations behind it, whatever I was doing, whatever. When you're doing those things, you're actually seeing the real you, which again, it can be really difficult to see, and it can initially be really uncomfortable because you're like, oh, I don't like that. But again, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It might mean that you got some of your values out of alignment, right? Like you're doing something maybe that your parent did to you, or that somebody did in your life that you vowed you never would do to anybody else. And now you're realizing, oh man, I'm doing this to the people in my life. And that's not a fun reality to see about yourself at first, right? But awareness is curative. Like when we interviewed Les Parrott, that's where I learned that back in my undergrad. Dr. Parrott said, awareness is curative in the sense that once you see it and you're admitting what really is, now you can do something about it. Now you can face yourself and say, I don't like this. I can change this. And that's different from if you are not being honest with yourself about what you really feel, you're just pretending. And the problems that I see people go through is like they are doing these actions or behaviors in situations or in relationships that I'm like, why would you do that? And they'll explain, well, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, it's because you actually felt this way and you didn't want to feel that way. And so you did this thing. And they're like, oh, I guess. And it's like, well, why don't you just be honest about how you feel, right? Well, because that could cause conflict, or people wouldn't like that, or I don't like feeling that way, or whatever. It's like, so you'd rather distort or twist yourself into a pretzel and make the situation worse than just let yourself feel that way and be like, okay, this is the reality of what I'm feeling.
Yes, I would. I love pretzels. Yeah.
Sorry. Does that come with salt and mustard? Okay, yes. Let's do that.
Here's the thing, like to take this one layer deeper, the reason why all that perpetuates is because when you're not, until you get that awareness and that acceptance of that, you aren't going to be fixing the right problem. What you're going to be doing is you're essentially, as we used to say, like the old phrase, white knuckling it. You're just trying to behave differently. Actually, as a side note, that's why sometimes CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, bugs the crap out of me, because a lot of times superficial therapy is, well, just do this different. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, you can, and you could be you can look like a different person.
For a period of time.
And yeah, and at some point, though, if you're not being honest with yourself, you're going to snap back like a rubber band that's been stretched out.
The makeup wears off.
Because you might know that you've done something wrong. You might accept that you need to change that and you need to not be like that. But there is a substantial piece of this that's, why did you do that? Because like I like in working with this, it's going to sound, Yeah. I like working in the realm of sex therapy, like people that have porn addiction and that kind of thing. And the reality is where they're coming from in the beginning is a very natural and good place. Their body or whatever wants love. That is not wrong.
Connection, exactly.
It's the connection you are literally built for. And so getting into that is where you're going to discover you get to be able to be compassionate to yourself and know like, yeah, these behaviors that I'm doing are not remotely for the right reason or are not going to fix it. They're not going to get what I need. But until you get the awareness and then walk into it and are honest with yourself, you'll never get to the way everything started and the compassion that you can have.
Because here's the reality. If you are perpetuating this dishonesty, then you are, sure, like putting on some sort of a facade or a version of yourself, but you're also like living in this hamster wheel of I have to maintain that in order to be this person that I think I am or I want other people to see. And that's exhausting. And when you can actually finally be honest with yourself, it can be, of course, like we've said, very difficult, sobering in some ways to admit this to a therapist, admit this to yourself or a friend or family member, whatever it is. But what I've seen is when people do that, there is a little bit of like, it hits you emotionally, it's painful, it's difficult, but then there's a ton of freedom. And it's like all the stuff that was previously off limits, we can now talk about it and we can explore because that's the reality of you.
Right. I mean, so you encounter the wall. Part of that, again, as I was saying, is the unknown that you're afraid of. When you get into that and have the awareness, the thing that you learn that you're going to know is all kinds of things. It's where this stuff started. It's why you did it. And then also you can get a real exact picture of like, oh, that's why I would make that decision. That totally makes sense. And until we are a constellation of people. We are so complicated with hormones and different things that move around our body. And, Daniel Siegel's been able to frame that through attachment and co-regulation and regulation and all these things that are going on. Our body is constantly demanding connection. We need it. We need all that. So in order to get into your body and be able to change it, you have to be honest with where you're at. Because if not, you don't have access to the very part of your body that's making the demand.
And ultimately, you might be harming yourself, right? In the sense that if you're betraying yourself, betraying your body, or abandoning yourself in some way, abandoning your beliefs, abandoning your values, abandoning what you actually need, if you're not taking care of yourself, then you actually might be doing a harm to yourself and perpetuating like these harmful dynamics within yourself. And that's nobody's fault except your own. And I don't say that to be, harsh or critical, but I say that as like, let me empower you, right? Because if you're feeling a certain way, you can blame other people, you can blame the world, and sure, life has its own sources of pain. But if you're causing that and if you're making it worse and you could stop it and make it better, but you're not, that's on you, bro. That's why we say you are your own worst problem, because you have the ability to make things better if you just took up this very difficult task, but simple task of being honest with yourself.
I think of there's several different shows where this kind of happens, but where somebody's standing there talking to another person and they say something like rude about someone, whatever that is, like, I can't believe, Johnny always does that. And the person they're talking to looks at them like, do not say that right now. And the other person goes, he's right behind me, isn't he? Yes, he is. So thinking back about the body, it's like you get a thorn in your arm. You're able to tolerate that. You can just pretend it's not there. You don't know how it got there. You don't care. Like, we'll just move on, that type of thing. But if you pretend it's not there, like, it slowly gets infected. Now it's infecting your arm. It's not just in where it is. Now it's infecting somewhere else. And that wall thing that I'm talking about is like you're looking straight ahead, but out the peripheral part of your vision, you can see you have a black arm of death.
Right.
And then your therapist keeps looking at it. And you're like, it's black, isn't it? Like, you know,
It's fine.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. Everything's fine.
Right.
The house
Yep.
is burning down, but it's fine.
Your arm is dying, like the entire thing, because of one thorn that needs to be taken out. That's kind of what therapy is, actually.
And once you actually address it, like you go to the doctor and the doctor gives you, whatever you need for that. And it's like that can start the treatment and healing process for that arm, right? But you can't do anything about it if you're not even willing to admit that it's black in the first place. And you've been doing stuff to avoid taking care of it, protecting it, removing that thorn or whatever, or you just keep going back to the rose bush and like keep like stabbing yourself with thorns. Like, it's fine, nothing really happens.
This rose bush has been fine the whole time.
Yeah, that's right. My arm is just falling off in black.
Everybody walks within 1 inch of a rose bush.
Right.
That's yeah. So at any rate, I think that kind of meandered into a pretty cool metaphor about that. But we definitely hope that this has been helpful, and hope that you can start to look at those thorns and realize that it's just a thorn. Like, it's just one thing.
And the thing is, about you, like I joked at the beginning, like you are the worst problem in your life. Well, so am I, right? So it's like when you admit that about yourself, I'm also admitting it about myself, and we can like stop the charades and we can be honest and have a more genuine, authentic connection together and be a more authentic person in this world.
And that's all we got. I mean, you are yourself. You get to be yourself. No one else gets to be you. I mean, you found that out in the mirror every day.
Although if you want to try to be me and send me your paycheck, that would be great.
Yeah, okay, guys. Have a great day.
Could that help that? That's funny. Okay, we do have time.